The neon lights of the Grand Royale Casino cast a vibrant glow across the sea of slot machines, their blinking displays reflecting off the polished marble floors. The air buzzed with the cacophony of electronic jingles, celebratory chimes, and the occasional cheer from lucky winners. It was a typical night, filled with hopeful gamblers trying their luck, until a sharp, furious voice cut through the atmosphere. "That's my money." Margaret Whitman, known to some as Karen, for her short temper and sense of entitlement, stormed toward a slot machine near the back of the casino floor. Her face was flushed with anger, her perfectly curled blonde hair bouncing as she marched forward. Her beige sweater, adorned with butterfly patterns, stretched slightly as she clenched her fists, her knuckles whitening. Standing beside the flashing screen of the slot machine was a man who didn't seem fazed by her aggression. He was well dressed in a sharp navy blue suit, a red bow tie fastened neatly at his collar. His arms were crossed over his broad chest, his dark eyes locked onto Karen with an unreadable expression. His neatly trimmed beard gave him an air of confidence and composure, which only fueled Karen's rage. She jabbed a finger toward the machine. "I was playing that! That jackpot is mine!" The man arched an eyebrow, his posture completely relaxed. He glanced at the machine, then back at her before finally speaking. "Ma'am, you weren't here when I sat down. The machine was empty." Karen scoffed. "I just stepped away for a second. I had to use the bathroom. That doesn't mean you get to swoop in and steal my jackpot." The man let out a small chuckle, shaking his head. "That's not how it works." A small crowd had begun to gather. The commotion had attracted other casino guests, some pausing their own games to watch the argument unfold. A few exchanged amused glances while others whispered among themselves. Karen didn't care about the audience. Her focus was solely on the man standing in front of what she believed to be her winnings. "You had no right to play my machine," she shrieked, stepping closer, invading his personal space. "I was winning. I was just about to hit big, and you," she gestured wildly at him, as if his very presence was an offense. "You took it from me." The man sighed, his patience beginning to thin. "Look, lady, that's not how these machines work. If you walk away, the game resets. Anyone can sit down. You didn't leave a card in it. You didn't ask anyone to hold it. You walked away." He gestured toward the casino floor. "That's on you." Karen's face burned with frustration. How dare he talk to her like that? How dare he dismiss her claims so easily? She had been playing that slot machine for almost an hour, feeding it bill after bill, watching as her credits fluctuated. She had felt it. That machine was close to paying out. She had only gone to the restroom for a few minutes, and when she returned, this man was sitting in her spot, grinning as the screen flashed with his massive win. She wasn't going to let this happen. "I want a manager," she demanded, crossing her arms. A casino attendant, a young woman wearing a red vest and black slacks, stepped forward hesitantly. "Ma'am, is there a problem?" "Yes, there is," Karen snapped, pointing aggressively at the man. "He stole my jackpot. I was playing that machine, and he took my seat while I stepped away for a moment. He should not get to keep that money. That's mine." The attendant looked between the two, clearly uncomfortable. She adjusted her name tag and offered a polite but firm response. "Ma'am, casino policy states that if a player leaves a machine unattended, it becomes available for anyone to use. Unless you had a reserved seat or left a player's card inside the machine, there's nothing we can do." Karen's jaw tightened. "That's ridiculous. I was gone for 5 minutes." The man smirked. "Maybe 10. Her fists clenched. "This is theft." The attendant's smile wavered. "It's not theft, ma'am. It's just bad timing." Karen's rage reached a boiling point. She could feel the stares of the crowd, the amusement in some of their eyes, the way they whispered about her as if she were some irrational woman making a scene. But she knew she was right. She had to be right. Then an idea struck her. Her hand dove into her purse, and within seconds, she was pulling out her phone. Without hesitation, she dialed 911. The man's amusement faded, his expression shifting to "You can't be serious." Karen turned slightly away from him, pressing the phone to her ear. "Yes, hello. I need the police at the Grand Royale Casino. Right now," she said, her voice urgent. "Someone stole my money, my jackpot, and I don't feel safe." There was a beat of silence before the operator asked her to clarify the nature of the emergency. Karen turned back to the man, glaring at him as if he were a dangerous criminal. A man took my winnings, and he's refusing to give them back. He's getting aggressive, and I don't feel safe. The man's jaw tightened. You're lying. Karen ignored him. Yes, I need officers here immediately. He won't let me leave. Now, the crowd wasn't just amused, they were stunned. The whispers grew louder, some people shaking their heads in disbelief. The casino attendant took a nervous step back. The man exhaled sharply, rubbing his temple. He had seen situations like this before. He knew exactly where this was going. But what Karen didn't know was that this time, things weren't going to play out in her favor. Not this time, and certainly not with what he had just found out. The tension in the casino was thick, and the murmurs of the onlookers only made it worse. The flashing slot machines, the clinking of coins, and the soft background music of the Grand Royale Casino all seemed to fade into a distant hum as Karen kept her phone pressed tightly to her ear, her face contorted in righteous anger. Yes, I said I don't feel safe, she repeated, her voice rising. He's standing here, acting aggressive, and he stole my jackpot. The man standing before her let out a dry, humorless chuckle. You're unbelievable, he muttered, shaking his head. His name was Jordan Cole. He had dealt with entitled people before, but this was a new level. He had simply sat down at an unoccupied slot machine, played fairly, and won. Now, this woman was not only trying to take his winnings, but had escalated things by calling the police. Karen turned slightly away from him, lowering her voice as she continued talking to the dispatcher. Yes, he's still here. He's a large man wearing a suit, dark skin, beard. Her eyes flicked toward Jordan before quickly looking away, her expression that of a concerned victim. He won't let me leave. Jordan's hands tightened into fists at his sides. She was lying. She wasn't afraid. She was trying to manipulate the situation, to twist reality into something that benefited her. And unfortunately, he knew how these situations tended to go. The crowd had grown larger, and the energy in the room had shifted. Some of the bystanders were amused at first, thinking this was nothing more than a heated argument over a jackpot. But now, the mood was different. People exchanged uneasy glances. Some whispered to each other. A few had even pulled out their phones, recording the interaction. Lady, Jordan said, forcing himself to keep his voice even, you need to hang up the phone. You're making a mistake. Karen turned back toward him, glaring. Oh, I'm making a mistake? You stole my winnings. You think I'm just going to let you get away with this? She scoffed. The police will handle it. Jordan exhaled sharply, pushing down the anger that threatened to bubble up. He had done nothing wrong, and yet he could feel the familiar weight of the situation pressing down on him. One wrong move, and things could spiral. The casino's security had finally taken notice of the situation, and two uniformed guards approached the scene. One was a stocky man with a thick mustache, his name tag reading T. Morris, and the other was a younger, leaner man who seemed a little uncertain about what he was walking into. What's going on here? Morris asked, looking between Karen and Jordan. Karen wasted no time launching into her version of events. Thank God. This man stole my jackpot. I was playing that machine, and I stepped away for 1 second to use the restroom. And when I came back, he was sitting there, stealing my win. I told him it was mine, and now he won't let me leave. Morris's brows furrowed as he turned toward Jordan. Sir? Jordan let out a slow breath before speaking. I sat down at an empty machine. I played. I won. That's it. There's no theft here. Karen let out an exasperated laugh. Oh, come on! You really think that's the full story? I had been playing that machine for nearly an hour. I fed it money. It was mine. And the moment I step away, he just takes it? She shook her head. It's not right. That's my money. Morris exchanged a glance with his partner before turning back to Karen. Ma'am, I understand you're upset, but casino rules state that if a machine is unattended, it's fair game. There's no claim to a machine unless you're actively playing. Karen's face twisted with frustration. That's ridiculous. Before anyone could say anything else, the sound of distant sirens began to cut through the noise of the casino. The flashing red and blue lights outside reflected off the polished floors, and Karen crossed her arms triumphantly. The police will sort this out, she said smugly. Jordan clenched his jaw. This was spiraling out of control, and she knew it. Within moments, two uniformed officers entered the casino, their presence drawing even more attention. A hush fell over the crowd as they approached. The taller officer, a stern-looking man with short cropped hair, stepped forward first. Who called about a theft? Karen immediately stepped up. I did. She pointed dramatically at Jordan. That's the man. He stole my jackpot and then got aggressive when I confronted him. I don't feel safe. Jordan let out a bitter laugh. Are you serious? The officer held up a hand, silencing him. He turned to Karen. Can you clarify what exactly was stolen? Karen planted her hands on her hips. I had been playing that machine and I left for just a moment. When I came back, he was there and then he won the jackpot. He knew it was my machine. The officers exchanged a glance before turning toward the casino's security. Do you have cameras on the slot machines? Morris nodded. Yes, we do. The officer gestured toward the back. Let's check the footage. Karen's smug expression faltered slightly. I'm telling you what happened. It should be obvious. The officer shook his head. If there's video footage, we need to review it before making any decisions. The security guards led the officers toward the surveillance room, leaving Karen standing there, shifting uncomfortably. The weight of the situation was beginning to dawn on her. Jordan watched her carefully, his lips pressing into a tight line. He knew the truth would come out. He hadn't stolen anything, but Karen had just lied to the police. And that was something she would have to deal with soon enough. The murmurs of the crowd grew louder as the officers disappeared into the casino's security room, leaving Karen standing stiffly near the slot machines. The flashing lights of the jackpot winning screen still flickered behind Jordan as if mocking her claims. Her face was flushed, a mixture of anger, frustration, and, though she wouldn't admit it, uncertainty. Jordan crossed his arms, keeping his expression neutral as he observed Karen shifting uncomfortably. He had dealt with people like her before, people who believed the world owed them something, who thought they could twist reality to suit their own narratives. He wasn't surprised she had called the police over something as ridiculous as a slot machine. But what did surprise him was just how far she was willing to take it. Lady, you just lied to the cops, Jordan said evenly. That's not going to end well for you. Karen scoffed, straightening her shoulders. I didn't lie. I told them what happened. I was playing that machine. I put my money into it. And then you, she gestured at him like he was some kind of invader, came in and stole my jackpot. Jordan shook his head. You walked away. That's on you. Karen folded her arms. You knew it was mine. It's common courtesy to let someone have their machine back if they just stepped away. Jordan smirked. Courtesy? You mean the same courtesy you showed by calling the police on me over a slot machine? Karen's lips pressed into a thin line. The whispers around them grew louder, and she could feel the weight of the crowd's judgment settling on her. This wasn't going exactly how she'd planned. She expected immediate validation, support, people rallying behind her, condemning the thief who stole her moment of triumph. Instead, more than a few people looked at her with skepticism, some even recording her on their phones. She suddenly felt exposed, vulnerable. The minutes dragged on, stretching into an eternity as they all waited for the officers to return. Karen tapped her foot impatiently, occasionally glancing toward the security room, her confidence faltering with each passing second. Finally, after what felt like forever, the officers returned, their expressions unreadable. The crowd hushed in anticipation. The lead officer, the one with the stern expression, turned toward Karen first. Ma'am, we reviewed the footage. Karen lifted her chin, her stance defiant. And? The officer exhaled through his nose before speaking, his tone firm. The video shows that you left the machine unattended for at least 7 minutes. During that time, multiple people walked by, and eventually this gentleman, he gestured toward Jordan, sat down and began playing. There is no evidence that he took anything from you or that you had any ongoing claim to the machine. Karen's face paled slightly, but she quickly recovered, shaking her head. But I was coming right back. I was playing that machine before I left. Doesn't that count for something? The officer's expression remained unchanged. No, ma'am. Casino rules are clear. If a machine is left unattended, it becomes available for other patrons. Karen's mouth opened and closed, searching for a response. But, the officer cut her off. Additionally, we found no evidence of any aggression from Mr. Cole here. He glanced at Jordan, then back at Karen. You told the dispatcher you felt unsafe, that he was threatening you. That was not supported by the footage. A ripple of whispers spread through the crowd. Jordan exhaled sharply, shaking his head. He had known all along that the truth would be on his side, but it was still infuriating to see how easily Karen had tried to weaponize law enforcement against him. Karen's face burned with embarrassment as she realized just how bad this looked. The officer took a step closer, lowering his voice slightly. Ma'am, falsely reporting a crime is a serious offense. Right now, I could charge you with making a false police report. Karen's eyes widened. Wait, I didn't mean to lie. I just... She faltered, looking around desperately as if someone might step in to defend her. But the crowd remained silent, watching. Jordan tilted his head. So you didn't mean to lie, but you still did? Karen swallowed hard. I just wanted my money back. I put so much into that machine. It's not fair. The officer remained unimpressed. That's not how gambling works. You took a risk, you lost, someone else sat down and won. That's not a police matter. Karen clenched her fists. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. The second officer finally spoke up, his tone slightly softer, but still firm. Look, ma'am, we're not going to arrest you today, but you need to understand that this can't happen again. Calling 911 over something like this is a waste of police resources. Karen's face twisted with frustration, but she nodded stiffly. The lead officer turned to Jordan. Sir, we appreciate your patience. You're free to go. Jordan nodded. Thanks, officer. As the police began to step away, Karen turned back to Jordan, her expression somewhere between defiance and humiliation. You knew I was playing that machine, she muttered under her breath. Jordan chuckled. And you knew you were lying. She opened her mouth to respond, but he was already walking away, his hands in his pockets, leaving her standing there, feeling the weight of every stare in the room. The crowd slowly began to disperse, some shaking their heads, others laughing quietly as they returned to their games. A few people whispered as they passed by Karen, their expressions a mixture of amusement and judgment. For the first time that night, she truly felt small. Her heart pounded as she slowly turned back toward the machine, the jackpot screen still flashing. It should have been her win. And yet, all she had now was the shame of having lost more than just a game. Karen stood there, frozen in place, as the crowd around her slowly dispersed. The flashing lights of the jackpot screen continued to taunt her, reminding her of what should have been hers. The humiliation burned hot in her chest, a mix of anger and embarrassment tightening her throat. She could still feel the eyes on her, the silent judgment radiating from the bystanders who had witnessed everything unfold. She had lost. Not just the jackpot, but the entire situation. Jordan had walked away with his winnings, head held high, while she stood there, exposed. The police had left after warning her about filing false reports, and the casino security had made it clear that she had no claim to the money. Her fingers curled into fists. This wasn't fair. How could they all just ignore what she had been through? She had played that machine for so long, pouring her money into it, watching the reels spin over and over with nothing to show for it. Then, the moment she stepped away, just for a few minutes, he swooped in and took what was rightfully hers. She exhaled sharply, trying to steady herself. She wasn't wrong for calling the police. She had just miscalculated how they would react. Karen turned away from the slot machines, her heels clicking against the polished casino floor as she marched toward the bar. She needed a drink. Something strong to take the edge off the shame curling in her stomach. Sliding onto a bar stool, she waved down the bartender, a middle-aged woman with dark red lipstick and tired eyes. "What can I get you?" the bartender asked. Karen barely glanced at the menu. "Whiskey." "Neat." The bartender gave her a knowing look, probably recognizing her from the scene she had just caused, but said nothing as she poured the drink and slid it across the counter. Karen took a slow sip, the burn of the alcohol doing little to soothe her frustration. She needed to think, to figure out how to fix this, because she wasn't done. She wasn't just going to accept this loss and walk away. Across the casino, she spotted Jordan near the cashier's counter, exchanging his winnings for stacks of cash. He was smiling, chatting with the cashier like he didn't have a care in the world. Karen gritted her teeth. He thought he had won. She wasn't going to let him. Her mind raced, trying to come up with a way to turn this around. She couldn't go back to the police. They had already dismissed her. Security wasn't on her side either. But there had to be something she could do. Then it hit her. If she couldn't get the police to take action, maybe she could make Jordan's life miserable in another way. Her fingers wrapped around her phone as she quickly navigated to social media. She could spin this, make people see what had happened through her eyes. With a few quick swipes, she snapped a blurry photo of Jordan at the cashier's counter, his stack of winnings clearly visible. Then she started typing. Unbelievable. Just got robbed at the Grand Royale Casino. I was playing a slot machine for over an hour, stepped away for a moment, and some random man took over and stole my jackpot. When I confronted him, he got aggressive, called the police, and they did nothing. Women aren't safe anymore. Hash casino scam, justice for me. She read over the post, debating whether to add more details, but decided less was better. The vagueness would make people curious. They would fill in the blanks themselves. Satisfied, she hit post and watched as the first few likes and shares started rolling in. A small smirk curled at the edge of her lips. People loved a good scandal. And even if she couldn't take back that jackpot, she could at least make sure Jordan didn't get to enjoy it without consequences. She took another sip of her drink, watching as her phone buzzed with notifications. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Jordan leaned back against his chair in the high-limit lounge, sipping on a glass of bourbon. The rush of hitting that jackpot had settled into a cool sense of satisfaction, but something still felt off. He pulled out his phone, scrolling absent-mindedly when a notification popped up. His name was trending. His brow furrowed as he clicked on the link, and his stomach twisted when he saw it. Karen's post. The caption alone was enough to make his blood boil. Unbelievable. Just got robbed at the Grand Royale Casino. I was playing a slot machine for over an hour, stepped away for a moment, and some random man took over and stole my jackpot. When I confronted him, he got aggressive, called the police, and they did nothing. Women aren't safe anymore. Casino scam, justice for me. Beneath it, the comments were pouring in. What kind of monster steals a woman's winnings? Security should have backed her up. Casinos are a scam. The police didn't help? Of course. Typical. Who is this guy? Let's make sure he never steps foot in a casino again. Jordan clenched his jaw. So this was her plan? She couldn't win fairly, so now she was trying to ruin him? His fists tightened around his phone as he scrolled down, seeing hundreds of shares, people throwing out wild theories about what had happened, none of them the truth. And then to his disbelief, people had started finding him. Some had dug up his LinkedIn, his social media accounts, even a blurry photo of him from a past work event. The witch hunt had begun, and all because one woman couldn't handle losing. He had two choices. He could ignore it, hope it died down. But experience told him that these things didn't just go away. If he let Karen control the narrative, people would keep spreading her version of the story until it became the only one that mattered. Or he could fight back. Jordan exhaled sharply and pulled up the casino's website. He tapped on the customer support chat and typed quickly. This is Jordan Cole. I was the jackpot winner earlier tonight. I need a copy of the security footage. The reply was almost instant. Our security team has already reviewed the footage, sir. Is there an issue? Jordan's fingers flew across the keyboard. Yeah, someone's lying about what happened, and I need to clear my name. Then, we can provide a written statement confirming the legitimacy of your win. Video release would require legal approval. That was fine. He could work with that. He took a deep breath, switching over to his own social media. He wasn't one for public drama, but Karen had made this personal. He crafted his response carefully. Hey everyone, let's talk about what really happened. The woman in this post left a slot machine unattended for 7 minutes. I sat down, played, and hit a jackpot, fair and square. When she came back, she called the police and lied, claiming I threatened her. Security footage proves otherwise. The police dismissed her claim. Now she's lying online to ruin my reputation. Receipts coming soon. He attached a photo of himself, calm and composed, standing with the police while they explained the truth to Karen. Then he hit post. Within minutes, the tide began to shift. Some of the same people who had jumped to Karen's defense now hesitated. Wait, so she straight up lied to the police? If there's footage, I want to see it. This is messed up. How come she didn't mention the 7 minutes in her post? And then the real damage started. People dug into Karen's past. Someone found old tweets of hers, angry rants about customer service, similar complaints about being wronged in public places. There were patterns. It turned out this wasn't the first time she had accused someone of mistreating her when things didn't go her way. By morning, Karen's post had backfired spectacularly. She tried to defend herself, posting another status claiming Jordan was twisting the story, but it was too late. The truth was out. The casino officially released a statement confirming Jordan's version of events, shutting down any last doubt. Karen deleted her original post. Then, her entire account disappeared. Jordan sat back, watching it all unfold, feeling the weight of vindication settle over him. She had tried to ruin his night, his reputation, maybe even his life. And now she was the one who had lost everything.